Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we got a brand new Battlefield 6 community update. This is called Play Your Way, and skimming through it here, they just go over a ton of separate things. They talk about gunplay, movement, what they learned in the beta, with what they claim to be 92,351,578 total hours of beta gameplay recorded. I find it pretty funny they use that specific number, but we're going to dive into this post. If you do want to follow Battlefield 6, it's coming out just in a few days. This is the channel for you. Be sure to hit that sub button, hit the like button, and of course, swing by the stream. Today is the 2042 uninstall stream. Yes, this is the final day I will ever play Battlefield 2042, and there was much rejoicing. They start off by telling us what they learned. Apparently, there were over 30 Battlefield Labs sessions successfully completed alongside the community and during the open beta, with a grand total of 92 million hours played during the open beta alone. Battlefield 6 is the most tested and iterated Battlefield game in history, and player agency remains at the heart of it, according to them. Battlefield 6, quote, has more ways to play than ever, and through the open beta, they aim to validate at scale that offering multiple playlists in parallel would not compromise the authentic Battlefield experience. And then they decide to give us a closer look at some of the more important things they noticed. Now, the next few sections of this post have to do with the open weapon versus closed weapon debate, and they actually go directly at the issue. And a lot of this stuff is heavily insinuating that closed weapons actually didn't make that much of a difference, and they provide data to sort of back up that position if you read between the lines. They are basically saying we're going with open weapons because the data didn't convince us to close the weapons. And a ton of people are taking issue with this because in a lot of people's eyes, the data isn't representative because in a lot of people's opinion, the closed weapon playlist was, quote, intentionally hidden in their opinion. But that is simply false. As you can see in this screenshot taken from one of my Battlefield 6 streams, the open and closed weapon playlists were actually directly next to each other. Now, I do understand that early on in the beta, the closed weapon playlist was accidentally shoved off to the side, but that was quickly fixed, and the all-out warfare playlists featuring closed and open weapons were directly next to each other for the majority of the beta duration. So it's clear that players were simply choosing to play the open weapon playlists over the closed weapon playlists. But the even harsher reality is, I don't think the majority of people really care. Just gonna be honest, and I think some of the data I'm gonna show you in this post really points to the fact that there isn't much of a difference, if any difference at all, between open and closed weapons when it comes to the gameplay of Battlefield 6. And I have to say, in my experience playing both of the playlists during the beta, I agree with DICE's position here. I didn't notice any gameplay difference. I've said this multiple times. I felt as though it played essentially identically. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be opposed to them locking weapons. I just think on this particular issue, people blow it out of proportion. But let's take a look at the data. Class pick rates. Quote, the map layout was the main deciding factor for class picks. For example, support had a higher pick rate on Siege of Cairo, which is more close quarters focused, and Iberian Offensive, with a more long-distance combat opportunity approach, we saw an increased pick rate for recon. Comparing between open and closed weapon playlists, we observed mostly identical class pick rates with a 1 to 2% difference at most. Then they move on to kills per hour. Kills per hour also remained virtually consistent for both playlist types. Open weapon players scored 0.2 more kills per hour in Conquest and 0.1 more in Breakthrough. Then they go on to match length. Match duration increased slightly within closed weapon playlists by up to 45 seconds, or about a 3.75% difference for both Breakthrough and Conquest. Revives. We also observed a slightly higher revive rate for closed weapons at 3% for Breakthrough and 2% for Conquest, which coincides with the slightly longer match duration. So what they're saying there is the higher revive rate for closed weapons can easily be explained via the slightly longer match duration on average. Signature weapon usage. More players played with non-signature weapons in open weapon playlists. However, recon players still heavily favored sniper rifles over other weapons, and their pick rate was identical between both playlists. That is a huge point. huge. One of the points I see get brought up all too often when people talk about open weapons is, oh my god, medics are gonna snipe and they're gonna have unlimited health with a sniper now. Well, according to this literal data directly from DICE, sniper rifle pick rate on the recon class was identical between both playlist types. This means that just because you can use a sniper rifle on another class, it doesn't mean people were going to use it. And it doesn't mean that it's better. The way people talk about the medic sniper thing in open weapons, they make it sound like everybody's trying to do it. But I just find it fucking hilarious that the data shows it actually wasn't happening more at all. Then finally, they touch on time in combat. They say there were no differences of note for time players spent in combat between open and closed weapon playlist types. The actual differences were only fractions of a percentage, where rounded up, the results were identical. Lastly, another key insight from the open beta was that the vast majority of players, after trying both playlist types, chose to stick with open weapons. So just understand that sentence, right? They played both playlists, and then they chose open weapons in the end. DICE goes on to say that this reinforces our belief that open weapons is the right path forward for Battlefield 6. At the same time, we recognize some players prefer the closed weapon experience. To support them, official closed weapon playlists will be available at launch. I don't support this at all, I have to be honest. If they're going to go with a weapon system, they should go all out on deciding that weapon system for the base game. They shouldn't do this thing where they're trying to satisfy everybody. If you want to have both of these systems available in the game, one system should be available in the base game, and the other system should be available exclusively in Portal. Splitting the player base over something as simple as a weapon system is not worth it, and I don't understand this direction. They should decide one thing and one thing only for the base game of Battlefield 6. And finally, they round off this section of the post by stating, additionally, closed weapons mutators will be part of the Portal toolset, so players can create and share their own custom experiences. Now, the next big development coming out of this community post is DICE mentions they have heard our requests for naval warfare, the Little Bird helicopter, and platoons, perhaps most importantly, platoons. I still don't understand why it's so difficult to have a platoon system in a Battlefield game. It just seems like something that should be there, you know? Then at the end of this big post, they mention the following gameplay updates, including our day one launch patch, will have over 200 changes and fixes available within Battlefield 6, which is great. And then they detail some things about the weapons they've improved and the movement they've improved and the gadgets and the maps and modes, just little miscellaneous details here and there. One of the biggest ones that I found in the gadget section was deploy beacons are now limited to one spawn per player, 4 per squad, helping maintain balance and prevent overuse. If you remember, their plan is to give the spawn beacon to the assault class, so this change is definitely very impactful. But that about wraps it up for this video. DICE dropping some absolutely brutal data-based truth nukes in this post. The Battlefield community definitely coping up a storm on Reddit and social media over the open weapon versus closed weapon stuff. Guys, I just have to be honest, like, I've been saying it. I've been saying all the shit that is now coming out to be backed up by statistics, but, you know, fuck me, I guess. Now, Battlefield 6, coming out very, very soon, October 10th. I am super, super hyped for it, regardless of what weapon system they go for, guys. How about that? I'll end the video on that note. I'm just excited to get my teeth into the game. I'm excited to just never play Battlefield 2042 ever again in my whole fucking life. Oh my god. I might be more excited to never play 2042 again than I am to get my hands on Battlefield 6. Isn't that crazy? But if you enjoyed this content, if you found it informative, if you want to stay up to date with Battlefield 6, hit that sub button. Be sure to hit that like button as well. Leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts about all this stuff. Then swing by the stream, which is today's Battlefield 2042 uninstall extravaganza stream. It's honestly only going to happen one time. I'm going to be in a suit. Might smoke a cigar. I don't know what's going to happen on stream. Could be some crazy stuff. So swing by that, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later.